Look at that beard, guys, okay? That's tragic. Hello everybody, welcome back, Johnny here, and yesterday they did the Starfield Direct. They showed a bunch of gameplay, and I have not been this swayed by an event in just a very long time. I'm so compelled by a lot of what I saw there, and it's really causing me to have to do a double take here. So we're gonna go through the event again together, through kind of the highlights and the stuff that I thought was most impressive, and we're gonna discuss it here. I got my morning coffee, so strap in and we're gonna get started. So Todd talks about how exploring is different in this game given the scale of it, and that a lot of times it is about landing in a place and scanning stuff, exploring things, and figuring out what's there. And, you know, initially when I was looking at this, I wasn't that impressed. It isn't that different from something like No Man's Sky, perhaps, you know, with combat. Because No Man's Sky does have some combat, but it's not really full-on action like this. But, you know, the more and more the show went on, they started to show the big cities, which we're gonna get to. And I started to understand, okay, this is not, you know, the same limited scope of buildings that we saw in No Man's Sky, which I love No Man's Sky, but their settlements and all that stuff, it was just not appealing, right? Once you saw, quite literally, once you saw one or two outposts, you had seen them all, isn't it? And here, you have all this stuff. The picking up the clutter, this is something that Todd joked about, but I actually love picking up clutter, learning what stuff is useful to pick up from like Fallout. You know, when you understand, okay, you know, you need the duct tape, right? you need the, I don't know, I think the fans, and you kind of understand like what's useful to pick up. That's actually a part of the Bethesda experience to me. You know, learning what is useful and what isn't in the world. And here they start to show some models. We'll get to the ship building, but the fantasy of building a ship where you can also choose which NPCs to populate it and maybe have some cool exchanges with each of them, bring them along to this journey, use this ship that you can like actually inhabit in, travel to planets, explore, go back to the ship. This sort of like meta narrative that's created by that's the juice to me. I love that in video games. That type of emergent narrative that you create for yourself. That's not about the quest. I couldn't give a crap so far about, you know, the main story. I quite honestly don't know much about it. But really just that moment to moment of the exploration and the reality of, you know, the living quarters in the ship and creating the ship and all of that, that's selling it to me. But I want to skip ahead to character creation. You know, Bethesda is not known for their pretty faces. I think we can all agree they have pretty rough faces in their games. And I mean, here we can kind of see some of the legacy of that. I'm not gonna lie, when I look at some of these beards, I can't help but be depressed. Not this guy. This guy has a nice beard. But the actual in-game models, I mean, just look at that beard, guys, okay? That's tragic. That, I don't want to harp on it, but it's just a tragic beard. And we see this a lot in their games. But what makes it okay to me, that this isn't personally the center of my focus in any of their games. Like, I've enjoyed Bethesda games despite the ugly faces forever. You know, I've loved a lot of their games. It does suck that we don't see like a huge improvement there, but I do find that when you see them suited up, they actually look pretty convincing. Like this, for example. This to me looks fine. It actually looks a lot better. So when you see them in the context with, you know, with the suit and everything around them, it sort of works pretty well for me. And if this is the area where we have to compromise and live with the Bethesda faces, you know what? I'm okay with that. Now, they also talked about skills, and I got a little excited about this one because your companions can also have different skills that they bring to bear within the context of your crew. So you can actually balance out your crew in different ways so that you have different abilities. And then the HUD itself was actually pretty interesting. I like the way they lay it out, and I like that the skills themselves seem to have some weight. It's not like, you know, +5 to attack, the typical thing we see. It does seem like you kind of gain additional abilities that you didn't have when you pick up new things. Also, that guy's mustache is just prodigious, isn't it? But yeah, I'm excited to look at what the skills have to offer. It did seem like a lean skill tree, not a lot of nodes on it, but the nodes that I saw seemed quite impactful. So maybe that's the type of system they're going for, instead of the, you know, the massive skill tree like a Path of Exile, where a lot of the nodes are simply passive buffs, right? You're getting a lot more detail. And then the other thing that kind of ties into all that is the RPG elements that we see in the dialogue itself. So in the dialogue, we're seeing some RPG elements in terms of numbers, right? +3 or whatever. And I'm really hoping they dig into that. That's sort of the meat and bones of RPG dialogue in Bethesda games for me. It's when your stats and like choices you've made actually matter in the dialogue, and you have that feeling that you've impacted the narrative in some at least small way. Now, here is where I'm geeking out, because I'm looking at ship creation and the ability to actually create from the ground up where the containers of the ship lie, and just overall the look of it. That's such a cool thing for me. I don't know if we've ever been able to do that, I mean, to this level in the game. Maybe I'm missing some obvious contender or competitor here that's already done this and figured it out, but the fantasy of not only creating your ship exactly how you want it, but then taking that out and exploring planets with it, again, being able to live in it, right, with your different companions and stuff, that's next level. That compares to me to the jump that we saw in GTA, when you guys remember the era where you could either drive a car and the game was about driving cars, or you couldn't drive cars. You would walk around and stuff, you would see cars, but you wouldn't be able to drive them. Well, GTA, I think, was the first one where you could see the cars and you could drive the cars too, and the game is not only about driving, but it's about all of this stuff. And so to me, to bring it full circle here, this is kind of, some games have done the ship creation, but it kind of ended there, right? Some games have done the exploration and it ended there, but this one is kind of trying to tie it all in together within the Bethesda type game, which also has a rich RPG narrative that's really compelling as well for me. So the idea of all that, it just strikes me as so ambitious. And I really, really want to dig into this system and see what it has to offer. Again, I'm not even considering the main story at this point. The main story could be trash, and I think I would still really enjoy this experience just for what was shown here. Talking a little bit about companions, this is something I've always liked in games, when you do have persistent companions or party members. And actually having a party, not just one companion, because I did feel in Fallout sometimes, you know, you had the one companion with you, and I kind of prefer to have a party. I don't know, there's something about the road trip, you know, camaraderie, the boy band. Doesn't have to be boys, of course, but you know, the consistent group really kind of brings it home for me, which is why I like Final Fantasy games a lot. You know, we talk about Final Fantasy 15 and the boy band. There was a feeling of camaraderie there that I don't really get when I have a single companion. Maybe you could argue that by having one single companion, you can get more intimate or closer to that companion. I don't think that was ever the case, personally. I think that there are plenty of opportunities to open up intimate moments with a companion while being in the group as well, where maybe you fork out and you do something together with a companion and you have a chance to bond over different things. I think it's all there, and I love the ability to have them in your ship, have a little banter, different things going on with them. And this is where, we talk in the podcast a lot about lying to the gamer a little bit, and just lying a little bit can create the illusion of something really gigantic being there. So they can create the illusion of having their own lives, that the fact that the companions have their own lives and goals and things that are going on, just by kind of lying to you a little bit, right? Like showing you things in a way that makes it seem like there's more there than there actually is. And just to create that fantasy that these people do have some stuff going on in their lives that they want to achieve, that they want to do, and they're tagging along out of their own volition in a way, right? They're choosing to be there. They're not just puppies following you around, which seems to be the case in some other games. I don't know. I'm pretty excited about this. I'm not really gonna talk much about the romance side, because romance in games has been really hit or miss, and more miss in my opinion. So I don't know how excited I am for romance specifically with companions, but I'm sure we're gonna try it out. And you know what? Watch our stream on Twitch and you'll be able to see all the shenanigans as we try to break that system. But talking about systems, they showed some more dog fighting. What did they call it? Dog fighting? Is it? I've never understood. But anyway, we see some ship combat. I've never loved ship combat personally, and despite that, I've loved many space games because I like space a lot and the fantasy of space. So I've played Elite. I've loved No Man's Sky. I've played a lot of Everspace 2 as well. So I love these games, but the combat itself has always been kind of difficult to nail down, because there's something so repetitive about just shooting, just the pew pew, and then you're moving around. You're always like chasing, right? You're chasing around with the camera to keep people under your crosshairs. And I don't know, there's something kind of tiring about that whole song and dance. And at least here you have a few cool things like managing levels of engine shields and different things like that. You can be a bit more strategic about it, and that maybe will make it a bit more interesting. Also, with the ability to customize your ship like that, maybe there's something there where you could say, excuse me, you could say, I don't even want to engage in combat. I want to be a stealth ship. So if they detect me, I'm just gonna nope out of there. This type of thing. Maybe there is a place for being that type of pilot as well, where you can choose whether to be a full-on combat ship or try to not to, and kind of pick your strengths elsewhere. They did also show some hardware, right? I think this is the collector's edition that comes with a watch, a box, and I have to say this is maybe the first time I've thought a collector's edition is actually cool. Because the idea that this watch like shows you data from the game and looks exactly like the one in the game, I don't know, man, that's pretty cool. I think this is maybe the first one where I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, yeah, I could go for that. I could go for that. They did also show a gamepad and a pair of headphones that are customized based on Starfield. They were pretty cool. I don't think I would buy yet another controller because I'm already served with my trusty Elite controller, which I love. But pretty cool stuff overall. I like seeing the creativity in what they've done there, and I think they legitimately look pretty cool. Now, there is also base building, and this one really excites me because it ties it all together as well with, you know, creating your ship. Having a place to return to is also a big thing into that kind of meta narrative thing that I was discussing. And I'm loving what I'm seeing so far. We haven't seen enough for me to kind of judge whether I'm gonna love it or not. What I will say, it looks like there's a lot of stuff to populate the inside with, which I love. And the way the buildings are connecting seems way cleaner than other games. So far, I'm pretty into it. But we kind of have to wait and see. I like the ability of gathering resources at your base with different machinery that you can create. That's pretty cool. Talking real quick about the combat, I love the weapons. They actually look really good, and they had some good sound effects to them as well. I like the variety and the detail. You can look at the weapons in the menus and see all the different parts that make them. And you kind of had a similar thing in Fallout 4, where you could, you know, see the different bits and bobs, but it was so low tech, right, the weapons, compared to this, that I'm actually excited to look at all these and kind of see the different ones. We have some kinetic weapons, some laser beam ones, and overall, you have to admit the combat has been cleaned up a lot based on the initial footage they showed a few months ago at this point. It does look a lot cleaner. And they do have a bit of like smoothing in the way the camera is moving, because just for the purposes of the video. But I'm actually pretty excited to get into this. It looks like a lot of fun. I like the addition of the jetpack because it kind of enables you to move differently in these fights and allows you to do stuff you wouldn't otherwise be able to do as well. It is kind of interesting that a lot of it seems to be like low gravity. So we'll have to see how that plays out, whether it's kind of clunky or smooth. We just have to see. And I want to wrap it up here looking at these gorgeous cities that they showed. Nicely populated, just huge in size and scope. I am so excited for this because this is what was lacking in other games in terms of having big cities that are lived in and have some stuff going on. And you have some RPG narratives actually happening. I do remember Outer Worlds having some cool elements and cities, but they were pretty small in scope and were very simplistic as well, where you had, you know, just a couple corridors to go through the towns. But here, this is almost like a Mass Effect Citadel thing, but on steroids. I'm just really excited to see it, whether it's the one planet that has a big city or we have several. I think it's going to be super exciting to be able to jump in there and look at that and then go out and explore more barren planets, create your own outposts, see what's out there. And all of that has me so excited. I can't wait for September. But I want to hear from you down below. Are you excited for this one? Did the event change anything about your perception for the game? Let me know your thoughts. And as always, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.